sometimes I have some strange analogies, right? I hope that you understand that when we come to this verse. Sometimes and that's all right. Sometimes I'm a little weird. By grace, you have to accept me that way. So anyways, we've been going through a lot of we're moving, right? We're going from our old house, which we've lived in for 23 years now, and we're moving into a new house that we're having built. And we're blessed to be able to do that, right? We're fortunate. And but at the same time, there's a lot of pain involved in going from our old house into the new house. Now, the thing is, we understand that it's going to be worth it in the end, right? We understand that when we finally get to that place that we're going to, it's going to be a much better place, right? But there is something that we are missing in that, we're having to take down all the pictures off of the walls, and we're having to fix all the things that are broken. And there's a lot of, when you've lived someplace and raised your kids, you kind of get attached to it, you know? You grow to it, you know? So it's kind of painful going from this house to that house. But like I said, we know that house that we're going to be moving to is going to be a nicer, better house, right? And I know it sounds kind of silly, but I think that's kind of the analogy that we have with our bodies. You know, we have this old, decrepit house, but we have a lot of things that we're attached to it, right? And we know we shouldn't be. And we know that the Lord has got a house for us that's going to be much better. But that transition, getting from our old house to the new house, is painful, you know, because we get kind of attached to these things, you know. There's a lot of memories and a lot of things that we have in these old houses. But we need to keep in mind that when we get to that new house, it's going to be worth it, right? It's going to be so much better. So, and that's kind of my weird analogy this morning. We're going to be reading in 2 Corinthians. We'll read in 2 Corinthians, and we're going to start in chapter 4 towards the end. And the part where he's talking about our house, our heavenly house, is actually the first verse of chapter 5. But we're going to read a couple verses ahead of that, just to kind of get the context. There's a lot of good verses here, but if you're in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, we'll start in verse 15. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 15 says, For all things are for your sakes, that the abundant grace might through the thanksgiving of many redound to the glory of God. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet is the inward man renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Now, this is the Apostle Paul here talking. We're talking about a guy that was drug outside the city and stoned and left for dead. And every time he was open his mouth about the Lord, somebody was looking to kill him. You know, and on all the things that the Apostle Paul had gone through, right? And what does Paul calls those things that he went through? A light affliction, right? So what, if his was light affliction, what's the kind of stuff that we go through? You know, it's not even worthy to be, that verse that says not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us, right? But so that light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Now, there's a lot of truth in that verse. If you can see it, it's a temporary thing. It's the things that you can't see that are going to last forever, right? But we get to the first verse of chapter 5. He says, For we know that if our earthly house of this tabernacle were dissolved, and he's talking about our bodies there, talking about this house, this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Man, and you know what? And we'll stop there on that verse of just we need to remember that these bodies here are just a temporary thing, and the things that are going to be eternal are the things that we can't see. We build that doctrine up within us. When you come to the Word of God and you read it and you allow it to build up that house of doctrine inside of you, that is something you get to take. Right? When you go out into glory, you take the doctrine that you built up inside, and that's that thing that is part of that eternal stuff. So, anyways, I guess my word of advice is it's hard going from one house to another, right? Especially when that house starts to get old and that house starts to fall apart, and there are things that don't work on it anymore, right? But we look forward to that house that God has made for us, that house made without hands. And when we get there, we can have peace and rest, and be thankful. Is all we can do, is be thankful to the Lord for it. All right, let's go ahead.